Good evening. Welcome to New Tracks. My name is Jim Kello, and I'm your host for this evening. New Tracks is where mentors help modelers build. Our goal is to encourage model building and help modelers like you develop the modeling skills, techniques, and most importantly, the confidence every one of us needs to build the models we really want. We want you to experience the thrill of saying, I built that. On each New Track show, the best model railroaders demonstrate innovative new products, modeling techniques, new technology, and answer your modeling questions. New Tracks is a great opportunity to have talented modelers become your mentors. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. We hope all of you come back often and tell your friends to join us. We currently have over 1,000 subscribers on either our website or our YouTube channel. We hope that you'll become a subscriber. And on YouTube, all you have to do is go to our channel, New Tracks Modeling, and click on the subscribe button, ring the bell, and check all. You'll receive all the notices for the future shows and the login links. We currently have over 300 YouTube videos that you're also able to see a lot of the past shows. On Zoom, you can watch, ask questions, speak to other modelers, show your modeling live, and participate in the lively after show. To join on Zoom, all you have to do is go to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, check subscribe. You'll get an email from the website. You'll confirm the email, then you're officially subscribed and you'll get all of the future notices. Please feel free to share the login links that you receive either on Zoom or YouTube with your friends and encourage them to join us and participate in our shows. Finally, if you want to be a guest presenter and show your models and techniques, we have several ways that you can do that. Send me an email to Jim Kello at newtracksmodeling.com and let's discuss. I really prefer the telephone for something like this. And if you'll send me your telephone number in that email, I'll give you a call back. Or if you'd like to donate a little bit of your time and volunteer to help us with our events, or our YouTube video productions, or the website, or just to give us ideas for future shows, please send me an email about this to the same address. Well, thanks so much for being here tonight. Now let's get on with tonight's show. Well, good evening. Happy New Year. I hope it's a great 2022 for everybody. I have some very sad news to start the show with tonight. One of the people that I considered a friend, Stan Cedarleaf, unexpectedly died New Year's Eve. It was very sudden, I understand, and nobody knew that it was going to happen. Stan was one of the most creative people that I know, and I will miss him and miss the products that he provided to our hobby. It's why these shows are being done and why I'm committed to them as I am. It's why I write the articles in the magazines that I've been writing for 4 years. Because those of us that are getting up in age aren't going to be here very much longer. And when we pass, the creativity, if any, that we have, and the skills, if any, that we have, won't be there anymore unless we can find a way to try to pass them on to younger people who will take what we know, hopefully, and modify it, change it, improve it, and continue the hobby in the great way that it's been up to this point. I'm so sorry to hear about Stan, and if we could have just a moment of silence, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Well, let me start the show with some more announcements right now. First, I want to talk about the build-alongs that are coming up as usual. February the 9th, Paul Reeves, who owns Kershaw Models, is teaming up with Martin Breck Build MMR to build Stanley Spar in O-scale. On February the 22nd, we are starting shows on Saturday again at noon, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Chris Blackmar's workshops are going to be all about scratch building. If you've ever wondered about it, if you've ever wanted to try it, this is your opportunity. You'll hear from a great scratch builder, a very creative person. And I hope that a lot of you will be interested and want to attend and hear what Chris is going to be talking about and try scratch building. If you've never tried it before, I think it's one of the most creative parts of our hobby. And if you'll try it, I think you'll really enjoy it. February the 23rd, the next day that we're on the show, Bruce Nicholson, owner of Seaport Model Works, is going to start building his kit of a waterline 53-foot coastal steam passenger vessel. Carried both passengers and freight on the Great Lakes, West Coast, East Coast, so it fits almost anybody's modeling. And this is a different one for us because we haven't had a boat manufacturer in to do a meetup before. March the 30th, Rick and Marie Hunter are back. They're going to build a 50-foot queen post covered bridge this time. It's available in all the scales. There's a great discount of it. And I hope you'll be interested in seeing Rick and Marie again. April the 6th, David Vaughn, owner of Wit and Wisdom Models, is going to start a build along with one of John Armstrong's inspired kits. And I think that's going to be something that you're going to want to really enjoy. May the 25th, Chris Corse is going to be who is the owner of Conowingo Models, is building one of his new kits. The kit is called the Kello Trolley Station. Thank you, Chris, for naming it after you too. And I think that's going to be an interesting build for everybody. June the 1st, Bill Banner, owner of Banner Model Works, is going to start a build along of one of his OM30 caboose kits. This is the first OM30 build along that we've had, and I'm really looking forward to this one. July 13th, Paul Egret and John Thomas Reynolds are getting together, and they're going to build a card model that Paul is designing as of June the 15th of this year. It will be posted on our website. There will be a scale card also posted there where you can download it to whatever scale you model. And you can build this in any scale that you want to build in. It's free to download. If you don't like the graphics that you see on it, if you'll contact Paul, he'll change the graphics to what fits your needs, and he'll do it at no cost for you. So here's an opportunity. The only cost that you'll have is the printer cost to print it out on a piece of cardboard and some white glue and a ruler and a knife to cut out the pieces and glue them together. And this can be something that if you've never tried card building before, I hope you'll give a hard look at, because I really think that it could be a lot of fun for you and save you a lot of money to provide buildings for your model railroad. Then coming up, we've got Jim King, who's Smoky Mountains Model Works. He's going to build one of his OM30 models in a build along. And that'll probably be in late August, September, somewhere in that time frame. And we've got others that we're talking about. One of them that I'm very excited about is going to be done by Earl Hackett, and it's a CAD build along. The CAD program that Earl will be using will be free to use by anybody. And Earl will start from square one. Keep it simple. And this will be something that even I am told will be able to do. By the end of the show, I should be able to design the model in the CAD program. I should be able to get it to a point where I can have it printed out. And then I should be able to follow Earl in building the model. And the model that Earl is thinking about designing and building is a Girder Bridge. And so I hope that you'll pay attention to that. It'll probably start sometime in August, and it'll run probably for 6 weeks. I think that it's something that's unusual, and we've never tried to do anything like this in this detail before. But I think based on the number of comments that I hear about 3D printing and the future of it for modeling, I think this is something that's going to appeal to an awful lot of you. Next, if you've got a modeling question, we've got a form on our website. If you'll fill out the form and ask your question, I'll try to get you an answer either on the show, or I'll have somebody email you and answer your question for you. The next My Build is coming up January the 19th. And we have something special to announce for that, because we have a sponsor for the My Builds from now on. Dan Darty's company, which name is, hold on a minute. Model Railroad Resource LLC publishes both of the magazines that I write for, O-Scale Resource and S-Scale Resource. And Dan is going to sponsor the My Builds from now on. And therefore, what that means is, in his magazine, as well as on our website, and as well as on the Zoom, anybody that shows a model in the My Build will have his model, his caption information about what the model is all about, and his name published in the next issue of Dan's magazine. So I hope that this is going to encourage more people to want to participate. I was extremely pleased that we had 10 people participate last week, and I'm hoping that we can double that number for January 19th. So if you're interested, now is the right time to start figuring out what model you want to show. And I really do appreciate Dan wanting to participate with us and to help us in this way sponsor the My Build. It fits in perfectly with the kind of philosophy that both of his magazines have, which is to bring modeling back to model railroading. And that's what the shows are all about. That's what my articles are all about. And that's particularly what the My Build that we do is all about. So thank you so much, Dan. And I hope that everybody is pleased to hear this. As I say, the next My Build is January is the 19th. And it's time for you to start working on the model or figuring what you want to show. Because if you built it, I hope that you'll share it with us. That's what this is all about. Now I'd like to turn into Paul Thompson for the quick tip of the evening. Paul?
Thank you, Jim. Now, if I can just get my screen share up, we'll be away. Okay. I just thought that I would point out something that's very useful to have around your toolkit or whatever else. And what you're looking at is actually available at the likes of Home Depot and your automotive store, etc. This is actually fuel line for a lawnmower. And if I can find there's a close-up of it. There's two basic sizes sitting here. And one of the uses that I've found with this thing is every now and then I've got a problem with insulating washers, et cetera, with KD washers, et cetera, not being thick enough. And this stuff can actually be cut, and there's other sizes that you can get. And if you like, you can get it in black as well as clear. And you can make thicker washers that sometimes will get you out of a jam for couplers, trucks, whatever. And this stuff is flexible to begin with and dries out a little and stays hard, but it is insulating. And there are some other uses for this thing, such as this is just rammed on the end of my tool here. And it basically, it allows me to put it in its box and it doesn't rattle around. So when I take it on my toolkit, nothing sharp happens to get cut or whatever. And at the same time, you can make guards out of it for stuff that's sitting in your toolkit. And it helps prevent damage to your tools, and it helps prevent damage to you when you reach in. And it's just one of those handy little items that you might like to have around, and it's dirt cheap. I think I bought both those pieces for under $1.50. And that's my tip for the night, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. I particularly like the price. Fits in my budget very well. Well, now I'd like to turn to the meat of the show. And I'd like to introduce first Clark Cooney. Clark is building a Banter model. And Clark, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Well, thanks, Jim. Okay, let's see if we can get to this. Woohoo! Look at this. Look at this. Are we going to get to the slideshow? Come on. There we go. All right. So this is part number 4 of the Banta warehouse kit. So just a little reminder, the warehouse kit, this one is built in HO, but it's available through Bill and Banta Model Works in HOSO and G and F if you are so inclined. Again, it's a slightly different kit from a normal laser kit. It's cut with a plywood or MDF base, and then you overlay pieces of individual board over the basic frame to give you your model. So in our last session, we left the modeler with a drafty building. So let's look at the windows in our kit. So the windows are made out of laser board, and they come in a package, as all of Bill's stuff is nicely packaged and separated. So these aren't wood, and so you got to give a little bit of thinking as to how you're going to stain them or paint them. I tried something. Usually I would just paint these, but I wanted it to really match the sort of the presence of the peeled paint that I was going for on the model. So I, again, like the building, I did a stain of the Hunter driftwood and just painted it right over and left them aside. So, and I have no idea why this is there. That's interesting. And then I added a little bit of the craft paint that I've been using. In this case, it's the mossy green. And again, I just dabbed it on with a sponge to give me that little bit of color that I was looking for. Now, one of the things you have to do, because if you remember, we've glued those individual boards over that laser MDF. And then if we overlapped the individual boards, we had to cut them out. Now, if they're not quite cut out properly, you want to make sure you dry fit all this stuff so it fits right in there. Should fit snug, but it should also fit without any pushing or pressure. So if it doesn't quite fit when you dry fit it, make sure that you sand it a little bit and get it to fit so that you're not pushing the pieces into the openings. Okay, and in this little, it's not really a window, it's a vent. It comes in 2 pieces. And basically I use what I call a sticker. It's a very sharp pointed tool that I got from one of the many tool people that sell tools. And it is just a very fine needle point. And I don't have to use tweezers. I just stab it with the point. Even a real good needle, you can make your own, will work, and you can put it over the vent so that the frame is now covering the edge of the vent. Now, I put on a little bit of white glue, and then I position it into the window or the opening, and then I don't let it dry before I do this, because then I can adjust both pieces if I need to make sure that it's nice and square to the building and it looks right. Because a lot of guys will just glue that frame up, let it harden, and then try and stick it in. Well, then you can't maneuver it, and it can be cockeyed, and you don't want that. So you want to be able to stick it in and be able to move it around a bit. All right, and so again, I use the underline stains to do some of the trim, the door pieces, and according the loading dock pieces. Now, nice thing about Bill's kit is that if you can see up in that left-hand corner, he's actually etched in what all those parts are for, and you can see them quite clearly. And again, I've just taken that driftwood stain, stained all the pieces, and then I know exactly where I'm going. Now, I used a chopper to cut the posts. You get a bag of posts for the railings and the pilings for the porch or the loading dock support. And he also gives this really cool cardboard fixture. And so what you do, you cut the pieces of the square posts and drop them into the openings. And if they don't quite fit right, sand them off a little bit. And remember, with a chopper, it always seems, especially as the thicker wood you get, it tends to bevel the piece and it doesn't cut it square. You could actually use, even with this is like 6x6, even if you do, you could use a razor saw to cut this, and then you get a much nicer square cut and probably less sanding. But use a little sanding stick, get them to fit, and they'll just drop in those slots in this cardboard fixture. Once you have those in, then you can put the railing on, and that's all out of that previous shot where Bill outlined what pieces to use. Now, this is where it's going to go. If you look on the left-hand side, it's going to go underneath that front deck. Now, I didn't glue it on. I just made sure it was the right length and it was going to fit. And of course it does. That's the beauty of laser work. But I left it off, and I'm going to set it aside for now. And the reason is I got a lot of handling of the building, and it's kind of a delicate piece, and I don't want to bugger it up. And that's a technical term, buggering it up. So you can just set it aside for now. Now, the freight doors again are just individual boards. Basically, the freight doors in the kit will be these two MDF squares, or actually they're rectangles, and you just take your individual boards and again glue them onto the MDF, and then of course trim off all the excess. Now, I like to have a little bit of overhang. I usually don't go right to the edge. On the one on the left, I've already trimmed the bottom off, but I always go a little overhang on all the way around, because it's much easier to trim and get it nice and perfect than leaving a gap or whatever by trying to fit it exactly. Now, in the first picture, you'll see the freight door actually fits on the outside, but I'm just showing you by having it sit on the deck, you'll notice it's just shy of the opening. And when you put it on the inside where it's really supposed to sit, you'll notice there's quite a gap at the bottom. Well, you need that gap because we have to put in the decking for that loading dock yet. So again, you're going to take that freight door and just put it aside. And we're going to make sure that we get the decking in. And it will go underneath that door, and then you can be able to position that door. Well, you could have it open, you could have it closed, whatever you'd like. Now, for the next week, we have to do a little planning. Due to the fact I don't want to handle the model, or we're handling the model quite a bit. I've again haven't put the under support of the decking in because I want to lay off for that till I get the whole deck in. So we're going to do that. And the same thing with the windows and the doors. The problem being is I have to, on that first, on the loading dock side, I have to get in all the decking in order for where the windows are going to, or not the windows, but the doors are going to sit properly. And I'm going to be pushing and handling them to get that decking down. So I'm going to wait till I get that done next week. So join us for next week's clinic in Back to the Future of Windows and Doors. And answer these more questions next week. Same Zoom channel, same Zoom time. I hope you'll join us then. Thanks now.
And again, we'll have questions for Clark at the end of the show. But thank you so much, Clark. You're coming right along with the model.
It's getting there. It's been a beautiful build, actually. I've enjoyed building it. Today was a bit of we've had lots of snow, so it was more interrupted by shoveling than anything else. I would like to say for all the new people who are maybe joining in on Zoom, don't forget, we do have a lively after show after, and you're welcome to chime in, and don't mind me if I pick on you a little bit, especially if you're new, because we like to get new people involved. So take it away, Jim.
Thanks so much, Clark, and we'll get back to you shortly. Now I'd like to turn to another great modeler, John Thomas Reynolds, who is a scratch builder with soda can cardboard. I had never thought about using this until I saw John using it and talked to him, but it makes all the sense in the world to me, and I think you'll agree once you see what he can build with it. John, welcome.
Welcome, and how are we all doing today?
We're getting there, slow and sure.
Snow and sure, yes, I understand. You're over on the other coast where you're probably getting plenty of the stuff too.
No, well, we're in Florida and it's nice and dry down here right now, just a little cool.
Oh, Florida's cool, yes, not a problem. I'd mentioned that I was working on a station project. I've only got one wall recently done, so here we are. And I want to show you kind of how some of the stuff I do. I'm using just good old stuff from a file card to give me my flatboard siding. So you can see how I've put that together. I've already done my windows from a piece of scrap plastic. There's one of the little windows, if I got that right. And someone asked me how I did my doors and windows. Well, if I can get it out of the little box here that I got so I can keep from losing things. Here's one of the doors. And I thought I'd show another model that really shows just what's possible from my mind. We can tell what this is, but I modeled it under construction, and yeah, there's not a single piece of strip wood in this thing. And so now I'm ready for questions. I'm hearing Simon and Garfunkel. Are we okay?
Have you tried cereal box cardboard?
I have. I will use it for larger buildings. I don't use it for the smaller buildings simply because it gives a lot more fuzz than the soda boxes.
Oh.
So, here's another crazy thing I did while I was trying to answer a thing. Even the posts on this are from that cereal box.
It's amazing to me how you can get the cereal box to look like that. That to me is just amazing work.
Thank you. Well, it comes a lot from, I showed you these pins. I've actually got others that I also use, but just artist pins to give me the wood. I've even gone a little crazy and built a bridge for another project.
What was the glue you said you used?
90% of the time I use glue all. Good old Elmer's glue all. I also will use Eileen's tacky glue for different reasons. The tacky glue is thicker, so it can be a problem at some times.
Pounce Wheels to introduce any texture into your cardboard?
I've been known to use pins, the back of a razor blade or the back of a the back of like an X-Acto knife. I don't use X-Acto knives a lot. I don't like the fact they roll off the table, and I'm usually barefoot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've had pointed conversations with a few X-Acto knives over the years. Fortunately, not bad ones, because I've still got quick reflexes, but
John, what have you tried to build with the soda box card that you just gave up on?
this that I'm working on,
Well,
what?
anything that you tried to build with the soda pop box that you gave up on it and decided to do something else?
It's not that I've ever exactly given up. There are a few things in which I've gone, okay, that didn't work, and come across a different way to try and achieve the same goals.
Can you give me an example of what that would be? What I'm trying to do is try to get some idea of what I shouldn't do with this.
You know, I started actually building paper models like the ones Paul Egri does and those things, and the printout stuff. And then I just slowly progressed from there when I found things that there wasn't a paper model for. And then I said, the real change came when I wanted to build an engine house. And there wasn't a kit that I liked or anything else. And it was an exercise in how far can I take this thing? And that's when I learned to, like I show here, actually frame my own walls. It's a pain, and I won't say it isn't. That's why I'm only at one wall so far on the station. But I figure about another 5 days, and I might actually have at least all the walls done.
That's a question, John, I have for you. It's Larry McDonald here. In laying up your walls, I know you use about 4 courses of the cardboard. Do you just lay up two layers at a time with the glue in between and then put weights on and wait till that dries? Or do you attempt to do all 4 and then wait it for a long period of time?
I'll give you this wall right here, which is the back wall of the station. I actually began earlier today. What I do is I made the doors and windows first so that I could know where they'd go on the wall. Then I cut out one thickness, and this is where I use the Eileens because I can spread the Eileens. It dries fairly, or it's tacky, almost instantaneous, and dries relatively quickly. So then it's just one cut out the doors, windows, 2 cut out the doors, windows, 3 cut out the doors, windows, 4 cut out the doors and windows, and then start going from there. And putting on like I am with the clapboard right now.
What's a tip you can give me so that I'm cutting out the doors and windows in the same place on the 4 pieces of card?
What I do is, like I'll use one piece of card that I actually cut it in. Then I glue the next piece to it, give it a couple of seconds for that joint to set, and then cut right through.
And using the first cut as your guide.
You got it.
Same with the 3rd, same with the 4th.
You've got it. I used to try cutting through 2 and 3 layers. And I don't care what I use for a cutting tool, it bends too much. So that's why I learned to do it just one at a time.
You use a razor blade, you said, for most of your cutting. How do you cut the corners?
The joke would be very carefully, but actually, like I'm working on this right now, and you'll see I'll have it cut it this one corner cut out almost in just a second. just by working the razor blade into the corners. And you can see I now have the window opening.
Yeah.
Nice
Gotcha.
square corners. Would an X-Acto knife be easier? Yes, but I've had problems with the X-Acto knives bending a little bit. I get a little better result with the razor blade.
Got it.
When you say that you have a little bit of a problem with the X-Acto knives, have you tried one of the heavier X-Acto knife blades instead of a number 11? I don't know the other heavier blade number
I
off the
haven't
top of my
really
head.
used like the number 5s or a couple of others that are out there that are a little more stout, a little more solid. They'd probably make my life a little easier. With the number 11, well, I actually had proof of why I don't use a number 11, because as I was making a cut with a razor blade on one of the other walls, I actually broke off a corner of the razor blade. So I do put it down. Fine motor skills was not a gift I was given at birth.
Okay, and then my other final question I think I've got for you is, have you tried to build any rolling stock with a sway back to the roof or to the floor?
Not yet. I'm looking at the John Allen article on it, and that is on the horizon. I'm just not sure how near that horizon is. The old John Allen article from the 50s on building swayback cars. Yeah, I've got that article.
That's
And I
exactly
am
what
looking at
triggered
it.
my question.
Yeah, well, my magazine collection is not the newest.
What are you using for paint? Do you have issues with the material warping or swelling?
This is good old fashioned from Walmart apple barrel paint. I get most of my paint actually from good old from Michael's or whatever, and I use their cheap acrylic paints. Every so often I find that I've got bumps that I have to work out because their milling is not the best. But this wall's painted, both sides. As you can see, not much of a warp to it. And by the time I'm finished, there won't be any.
Well, I think it's amazing. I can't get over the skill that you have and the ability that you have to take that and work those models. I'm really looking forward to you and Paul getting together and you building one of his buildings. I think that's going to really be something interesting for everybody, and hopefully get other people interested in building in card.
Absolutely. Well, I know you're having the series on scratch building, and if I can figure out how to use a video camera better, I might even be willing to join in on one of those ideas and show how I literally scratch build from nothing.
Well, Chris is here tonight. Chris,
Yeah, it sounds like a plan to me.
So I'll let you contact John about that, and you guys can work out when he can do it.
Yeah, I'm still on the learning curve for Zoom, so you can tell it took me a long time to graduate from chisel and slate. It was finding out that the carrier pigeons don't move the slate very well that finally got me to change and learn how to use something else.
If you ask Clark will tell you that you're even further ahead than I am. So, you know, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's I like to have my children around for technical support, and unfortunately, the one that's still living with me is about to move to Missouri, so it's going to get more interesting. I'm actually going to have to teach myself.
Does anybody else have any more questions this evening for John? Well, John, thanks so very much. I appreciate it. I think your station is going to be gorgeous once you get it finished. And I'm really looking forward to the build that you're going to be doing on with Paul. And thanks so much for being here. And if you do want to participate in the scratch building on Saturday, I encourage you to do it.
And
Yeah.
swayback cars are going to be the name of the game.
Let me know when. Let me know when, because I think that'd be a blast.
Well, you got it. Well, thanks again for being here this evening. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, no worries at all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, now I'd like to introduce a really special individual, Bruce Rosenberg. I met Bruce in September of this year. I was fortunate enough to be invited to participate in one of the Association of Professional Model Builders Zoom seminars. And Bruce was the speaker. And I was so impressed with Bruce and the way that he models and the things that he does. I invited him to join us tonight. I know this may not be model railroading, but I tell you, the way that Bruce approaches problems, the way that he thinks about things, we can all benefit from the way that he does these things, in my opinion. And while steampunk may be new to some of you, I think you're really going to enjoy meeting Bruce and hearing him. So Bruce, thank you so much for being here this evening, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for everyone for attending. And so I'm going to just kind of go through a little bit in terms of what steampunk is, what I do. I'll show you some examples. As Jim said, I'm not a trained model builder, although I do play one on TV. Only kidding. I don't even play one on TV. But I am, a lot of my projects are large installations. So, going into museum exhibitions, going into adaptive reuse projects. But I do love to build small models of some of my larger pieces and just kind of work in my own workshop, which is right behind me. My wife and I bought an 1876 Gothic church in Palmer, Massachusetts, about 4 years ago. And we're converting it it's our home. It's my workshop, office, it's my gallery, showroom. It's kind of being everything. And if you actually want to see it online, you can visit my website. It's at modvic.com, modvic.com. It stands for Modern Victorian. But also, we were featured on a Netflix original series called Amazing Interiors. So next time you're on Netflix, if you get it, search for Amazing Interiors. There's 12 episodes, and they're all great episodes. So you should watch them all. But our church conversion is featured on episode 8, Steampunk Wonderland. So you'll see kind of the craziness, because Netflix came out right after we bought the church, and we're starting to kind of go through all the rigmarole to kind of get it to be our home. And of course, the producers pitted my wife and I against each other, because I was like, okay, I've got to get the artwork in place and do all this. And my wife was like, we got to get the ceiling done. We got to spend our money there. And so there was this kind of drama that was happening, which was pretty real. But so you'll have to kind of excuse that. But in Palmer, if you don't know Palmer, Massachusetts, we're about 60 miles west of Boston on the Mass Pike. And Palmer is kind of a little bit of a train mecca. It was known as the town of 7 railroads, because a lot of this was like a hub where Springfield, Worcester, Boston, a lot of the passenger rail came through here. It no longer does. It's only freight rail comes through. We're trying to get passenger rail to come back, because it would be an incredible kind of benefit for people to live in Palmer and then just commute into Boston, which would only be about 40, 45 minutes away. So and we have a very famous H.H. Richardson train depot here. It's one of his largest that he made, big kind of stone train depots. that has been converted into a restaurant called Steaming Tender. So if you're ever in the visit, give me a holler. I'll give you a tour, and you can go have lunch or dinner at Steaming Tender. You can still see the freight, trains come through the station. So what I'd like to do tonight is I want to again kind of bring you through. I'm going to give you a presentation. It's a PowerPoint, and I'll go through that, and then I'm going to switch over to my phone, because I'm going to give you a chance to take a kind of a quick look at my space here. I won't be able to show you everything because there's a lot to see, but you can take get a sense on what I have here. And if you want, after my presentation, if you want to ask questions, that's fine. If you want to ask questions, afterwards, that's fine too. If you do have a question kind of in the middle and you want to do a chat, and I'll kind of answer questions on the fly. So whatever works. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, and I'm going to bring up. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put it on slideshow. Okay, so steampunk. One of the, when I tell people I'm a steampunk guru or a steampunk reimagineer, more often than not, people say, yeah, I kind of know what steampunk is. I saw it in the movies and gaming and fashion and all that. But a lot of times they go, kind of, can you explain what steampunk is? So steampunk really had its origins in science fiction literature. And it in the 1980s, and everyone knows the movie Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That genre of science fiction is called cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is kind of the imagining of what technology is going to be like in the future. So in Terminator, Skynet goes live and kills all the humans, and I think we're pretty close to that. We probably only have a year or two to get to that at this point. But there were authors at that time that said, well, wouldn't it be cool to basically look at the Victorian age, the Industrial Revolution. So imagine 1850s to early 1900s. Imagining or reimagining if they had our modern technology. What if they had the computer 150 years before it actually was invented? How everything would have changed. So it's this kind of retro future perspective. And if you know the story of Charles Babbage was a mathematician and scientist in England. It was in, I think, the 1850s or 1860s. He actually designed the difference engine or the analytical engine. And this was really the first, well, I shouldn't say first, but it was one of the most complicated mechanical computers. And he was working with Ada Lovelace, who was considered the world's first computer programmer, to get this thing built. And it was way complex, but he kind of had everything designed out. He was looking for funding, and no one believed he could really do it, and he didn't get the funding. And they actually built it about 20 years ago in England, and it actually worked. So just think, if he was able to get the funding and created this mechanical computer 150 years ago, how that would have changed everything. And so steampunk kind of has this reimagination of, what if during the Victorian period, industrial age, they had our modern technology. And for me, it started in science fiction literature, then it got into movies, and it got into TV, got into fashion, gaming, and I kind of come at it from this kind of functional art perspective. But if I had to give a formula for steampunk, like what are the main elements? I see the three main elements as history plus art plus technology. So if you can think of H plus A plus T, steampunk hat, that's kind of where it is. It really needs to have those three things to kind of bring the past, the present, and the future together, kind of creating virtual time machines in a way. And so again, and you kind of, you've probably seen steampunk if you haven't heard of it. As I said, science fiction literature, K.W. Jeter was actually the guy. He's a science fiction author. He wrote Infernal Devices and a lot of other sci-fi books that came up with the term steampunk. Partly because, the steam age and the steam age really, people, historians, and most people who understand kind of what got us, propelled us into the industrial age, was the invention of steam power, of actually harnessing steam and using its power to do things. And because before steam power, it was really just our own power, our own muscles being able to move things, and animals' muscles, horses, or whatever. And then with harnessing steam, we could employ machines to do our work, and so things just kind of exploded on a massive scale. I don't know if you've seen the Wild Wild West movie with Will Smith. Wasn't a great movie. It was in 1920, not 1920. It was in 1990, I think, 1999. It just kind of had its 20-year anniversary, and Will Smith thought it was his worst performing movie. It had some neat steampunk gadgetry in it, but it wasn't that great. And then you see a lot of steampunk fashion with women kind of having these really great gadgets and devices, built into the clothing, and kind of Victorian undergarments are actually brought out, from the interior to the outside, and kind of having this fun aspect of opposites. I kind of got into steampunk, not even know what steampunk was. This was one of my first installations that I did for myself. I didn't have Modvic or any of my, my larger pieces, and I just found this really beautiful old pump organ, a Victorian reed organ, and I turned it into a modern computer workstation. And you can see here, this is the pump organ. The bellows was already out of it. A lot of these pump organs, the bellows goes in it, and there's no repairing it, and so it just becomes like a nice piece of furniture. So I was able to put all my computer equipment where the bellows went down here. I have a keyboard that was using typewriter keys, making it look like a typewriter. I've got my monitor screens here. This little camera actually houses my webcam. So when I was doing video chatting, it was actually looking through this camera lens where this bellows was, and it was really great because as you're seeing me now, it had like a halo effect. So I looked like I was zooming from a time portal. And this actually, this was fun because after I finished this, people were taking pictures of it. It went viral. And then my son comes running up to my office. This was in my office when I lived in Sharon, Mass. And he goes, Dad, your computer workstation has become a meme. And I go, that's great. What's a meme? And he says, well, it's gone viral and it's all over the place now. And so he showed me a picture of my computer workstation, and underneath it, it said something like, all technology should look this awesome. So I became kind of a steampunk celebrity, at least with my kids and their friends. So this was one of my first projects. And then, so many years later, through a lot of different projects, I ended up coming to the church. And if you watch the Netflix special, you'll see the installation of Helio Man. And And again, what I do is I fuse history, art, and technology. Here, there is a company called Big Ass Fans. That's a real company. They develop fans for large spaces like churches and factory spaces. And so I built this kind of like a Mad Max helicopter man that is made up of all different parts and pieces. And he is positioned below the fan's blade. So it looks like when the fan is going, that it's his, like a helicopter blades. I did a series of what I called Hue Machines. Hue Machines are these iconic functional sculptures of famous authors and inventors and visionaries from the industrial age or the Victorian period. And they come back as the machines that they either wrote about or created. So here, H.G. Wells, who wrote The Time Machine, he comes back as a physical time machine made up of parts and pieces that actually existed when he was alive and are time-based. And it has movement, it has sound, it lights up. It really kind of creates a story of who this author or inventor was, so you can learn more about him. And this was part of a museum exhibition. And then on the larger scale, I do these large installations for, again, hotels, hospitality, adaptive reuse developments. This is what we're calling a steampunk armillary. An armillary is a representation of our solar system with kind of sun in the middle and the planets, the celestial bodies kind of rotating around the sun. So here is a CAD design, and my process is normally coming up with the idea, coming up with the concept, and doing drawings, either sketch drawings, kind of like Da Vinci style hand drawings, or computer assisted drawings. And this is a CAD drawing of what it is, and not just the drawing, but also an animation that we do to kind of show the movement. So here we are building it. We did this I can't do this in the church, of course, because I don't have the room and the insurance. I can't weld in the building. So I work with really talented fabricators near me to do this. So here we're building the base of the structure of the sculpture. Over here, you see it's coming together. And I'm always finding found objects, relevant, meaningful objects as part of the design of the sculpture. These are 100-year-old mill gears over here that have these beautiful bronze stems, and those actually move. They rotate, and then here it is in place. It's at the Hotel Marlowe. It's a Kimpton Hotel in Cambridge, Mass. And if you are in Cambridge, please go see this, especially at night. You can see how beautiful it is when it lights up at night. It's kind of a performance light piece. This is kind of these are my dream projects, because I'm able to kind of take these ideas, these concepts, and bring them to life. Here's a really great shot in the winter, and it's really become a piece of public art. People come to the hotel just to kind of see this art sculpture, and it's really helped the hotel too, because they call the installation Celeste for celestial, and what they do is they use Celeste to promote the hotel as a venue for functions, so for weddings, bar mitzvahs, parties, whatever, and they've attributed a lot of additional revenue to the hotel because of this sculpture. So it's not just the kind of like we'd like to have. It's really can become kind of what I call a RON, R-O-N, return on novelty. Can everyone see this moving or not?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So just to run this through quickly. So you can see most of my work is kinetic, meaning that it moves. This is moved by a motor, shaft and gears. Other times it could be kinetic movement through wind or water or sun, solar power. So that really helps to engage the visitor or the guest because it really kind of brings them in to kind of the connections that I'm trying to make with the sculpture. A lot of times it does have interactivity too, especially when I'm working in the museum world, having the visitors, the guests, be able to control the sculpture in a lot of ways too. And especially if it has to do with science and engineering, is that it's edutainment. They're through entertaining, we're educating. And they're not even kind of aware that they're that they're learning in a way. So this is, again, really exciting for me to be able to work on many different levels, really creating these fun, fantastical, kinetic, signature types of art installations, but also, work with museums and work with kids on steampunk kind of workshops and programs to help to become better creative problem solvers, better collaborators, and better sustainable, adaptive reuse and resilient kind of thinkers. This is the program that I created with the UMass Lowell psychology department. Ashley Hillier was a psych professor there, and we created a program called Steampunk Kinetics, Building Art into Science. And here we worked with kids on the autism spectrum, and they worked in teams, and they had to build kind of their own mini Rube Goldberg rolling ball sculpture with a track that a metal ball would go down through all these things. And there was electronics and sensors, so lights would go on, sounds would go on. And it was stacked, like you can see it was stacked here. These boxes and using repurposed parts and pieces. So the ball would start kind of at the top of called it the Steampunk Tower House, going through all the boxes, and the kids had to work together to kind of create, everything part of the team, but then had to work with the other teams, other box teams, to make sure that the ball was going to go all the way through. And here you see the metal ball is going up this chain. It's just magnets that are bringing up the balls. It delivers it to the track. It goes down through all these really fun things. It just hit a trigger where the light went off, comes down, and then starts again. And I work with a lot of kids who are on the spectrum. I also work with neurotypical kids, vocational high school, junior high school, with these types of programs. This was very fulfilling for me because these kids on the autism spectrum they have a hard time in social groups and in being in front of audiences. They actually presented what they did to about 75 people in a big auditorium, and they were very passionate about what they did and very vocal, which was really unique. And one of the mothers, I can still remember to this day, she came up to me afterwards and she said, "Bruce, my son normally doesn't like to do these kind of art therapy programs, but he loves steampunk kinetics. He was dragging me to the workshops, and every day he would come, every time he went to the workshop, he'd come home and just be so excited about what he did. And he normally didn't do that. He basically wouldn't say anything after he got home. So that to me is everything. It kind of gave them a voice and gave them a way to be able to, to show their passions. And it was STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, adding the art, the A to make it STEAM, and making the steampunk. And the punk part is really the kind of the history, the meaning, the context, like why are we doing this? That all kind of came together with this program. So if Alfred Einstein was still alive, he'd be a steampunk, from STEM to STEAM to steampunk. And there's me with my H.G. Wells time machine. So that's kind of to finish off this part. But kind of just to kind of close it out. And what Jim was talking about in terms of my process, my creative problem-solving process, just to kind of give you an idea of how my brain works, and really a method, a process of how to think to be able to invent and also to creatively problem solve. So there is this process called Gynusian Thinking. And if you've never heard of Gynusian Thinking, you can look it up. It's Gynusian, Janusian. Gynusian comes from the Roman god Janus. Janus is usually pictured with two faces going in opposite directions. And the idea behind Gynusian thinking is, while you are in the present, kind of trying to, looking, analyzing at the problem, to get to the best solution or invention, you have to be simultaneously thinking about the past, looking towards the past, and looking towards the future. So having your head in three kind of spots. And the idea behind Gynusian thinking, there was a researcher in the 1970s, Albert Rosenberg. He was very interested in how great creative problem solvers and inventors' minds worked. Like, what's their process? Because if we understand it, then maybe we can teach it. Well, he found that it was not, these people were not linear thinkers, meaning here's a problem, point A, here's a solution, point B, draw a straight line, boom, you've got your answer. That's not how it works most of the time with great problem solvers and inventors. They were divergent thinkers or opposite thinkers. So instead of problem solution, it's problem in the center, and then you come up with two opposite solutions consciously. You're figuring out polar opposites in the solutions, and then creatively trying to bring them together, fuse, synthesize them to get to the best solution. And a really simple example of this, as for an invention that we all take for granted, of course, is the hammer. And if you know the history of the hammer, when it was first invented, it had one function. And what was that? Banging nails, banging rocks, whatever, banging something. And it wasn't until later someone kind of said, well, and this is kind of the Gynusian opposite thinking, but what if we gave that tool its opposite function in the same tool? Wouldn't that be great? And so that's how someone came up with the claw to take the nails out. And I know that's looks obvious now and it sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. And everything in life is this combination of opposites. And what I noticed when I was doing steampunk art and design, this was at the core. This is literally what I was doing, combining opposites of the past and present, or past and future, art and science, form and function, man and machine, the biological, the mechanical. It was all of this idea of these opposites coming together. And there's been a lot written about this and about how the brain works. And, everyone is trying to make a hit, meaning, you want it to go viral. You want a lot of people to see what you do in everything that we do. In theater, in comedy, and, whatever we're trying to do, we are trying to kind of make a hit. We want as many people as possible to see it. Well, there is no formula for making hits. If there was a formula, then everyone would be doing it, and then nothing would become a hit. It's really hard to come up with what the ingredients are. But what is normally present in a hit, kind of taking it apart, is this this fusion of the familiar and the novel. Think of it, the familiar and the novel. The familiar in that you're looking at something that is in your wheelhouse, that you have a reference for, that you can understand. It's not totally foreign. You can accept it in, right? That's, that kind of opens up the door. But then there's this element of novel, of mystery, of like engagement. And it gets your brain working, like, that's new, that's different. How do all these pieces relate? And that's what steampunk is all about, because it's the familiar of familiar objects. It's your grandmother's Singer sewing machine. It's, whatever, as part of our history. And when those objects in that history is meaningful and relevant to you, when you have an emotional connection and you're building that into the sculpture, you're building that into the story, it really helps to engage people. It gets people to think. And so, here is an art form, really, to help you better creatively problem solve by thinking in opposites. So next time you are trying to solve a problem or invent, it could be in your model train railroad building, it's the opposite thinking that can really help to make it all come together. So what I'm going to do is I need a minute or two to switch over to my phone. Jim, if you want to kind of engage people, see if they have any questions too, as I'm kind of going through this, then we'll go from there.
That's great. I will do that.
All right. I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
And I do encourage you to ask questions of Bruce, because he's just a wealth of information. And frankly, the way that he thinks and talks about problem solving and trying to deal with issues, I find fascinating, because to me, I like to scratch build everything. And while I may start with a picture, I very rarely am able to duplicate that picture. I always have to change it in some way, or to create what I'm doing as a model, as a representation of that picture, rather than an actual duplication of what I can see in that picture. And the way that he thinks and everything is what I would like to try to do, to try to improve my ability to scratch build. And I think I can do that, but I'm on a very steep learning curve, trying to relate what he is talking about to how I can improve my own individual modeling, particularly my scratch building. But that is what I find just so amazing about the philosophy he has, and the way that he approaches a problem, and then tries to find his solution. So I do encourage you to ask questions if you have any.
Yeah, so does anyone have any questions to date, or do you want to wait till after the tour?
Why don't you do the tour?
Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my my flip here, so you get to see, and this is actually where I was just zooming with you. So this is a early 1900s studio portrait camera that I converted into my computer workstation. Again, using a modern keyboard with typewriter keys, and this is all functional. You can see the remnants of the old portrait camera. You see the bellows, and this is where the lens went. So all that is now my functional workstation. And I have a whole, see that, I have lots of different kind of historic elements here. The side pieces are library shelves from the US Library and Congress, load-bearing shelves that I kind of used as trellises there. That top piece actually is a bumper to an old fire engine. I loved it. The name of the company began with an S, and so, but I'm just thinking it was perfect for steampunk.
And then, and this is my workshop here. And it's really wonderful for me because, you know, a lot of what I do, my background is in marketing. And I spend a lot of time marketing and branding at my computer workstation. And then when I'm finished with that, I can kind of go to my workshop here. This is my assembly station. So all of my kind of objects that I'm starting to put together, I can prototype here at this station. And then over here, I've got my concept development or drawing. So this is actually this is kind of a steam engine boiler system down here at the base of the table. And this actually was a piece that I did. It is kind of a model. It is a late 1800s model train that I outfitted with all of this wonderful Victorian hardware and parts and pieces. I'm very proud of the wing part of this flying train, which were kind of pulley supports. So the pulley would kind of go, you know, right in there. And it made the perfect scale and size for a wing. I love putting these eyeballs as part of the design because it's kind of seeing into the future and also into the past. And it's on a rotating display that you would see in a you know, in a retail setting. So that's constantly turning. And I fixed a really beautiful kind of gooseneck light to show it. So, and one of the inspirations for this was Back to the Future. I think it was the third one that had the flying train. And so this this is kind of my own Back to the Future. This piece here is ARI. He stands for Artificial Robotic Intelligence. And also, as I told you about my Hue machines, this one is also for Aristotle, which is also ARI, short for ARI. And he's going to be basically an AI bot. And he's made up of all these really kind of beautiful Victorian machines. This is an old Burroughs adding machine. Look how complicated all that is in terms of, like Charles Babbage's difference engine, you know, with all the gears and levers, pulleys. That is an old Hammond curved typewriter. So this actually is a piece that I'm working on, and these are protractors that would measure distances on maps. And you can see how this this lady here is kind of using this map protractor as a flying device. I've been doing a lot in what I'm calling flights of reimagination. There's another guy. And so these are like Da Vinci inspired flying machines. This I'm working on right now too. And if you've ever been to a dentist who had old Ritter kind of dental equipment, these are actually parts of a dental outfit. And you probably recognize the bowl here, the spit bowl. You see the little guy in there. And that's everything that you see there. That guy's arm is a drill. And these were all parts really of the dental unit. That was a motor that spun the drill. I was actually able to get two of those. See here. So just like fun stuff. I found these really great metal teeth. You can see it over here. They look like this. These are actually dental mannequins. So dentists would practice on these different sets of teeth. And so I'm going to get teeth for those part of it. So it looks like they'll be kind of weaponized choppers. I'm going to go out into in my main space here, and just to give you a sense, I built the shelving so I could kind of organize stuff. I have a lot of older pieces, antiques, salvage, and I can kind of get a sense on how much stuff that I have. These are great organization cabinetry, metal, where it came out of an assessor's office in an old city hall in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and it's perfect for me because where they would put the index cards, I can put my smaller items. And you can see here, here's some places to put vertical items. So, and it's really great for me to have the room to show this or visually see it, because when it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and it's hard to kind of visualize what you have. And I need to have this all out here so I can remember what I have and can be inspired by what for these projects. I don't know if people how well they can see this, but if you have an idea, this is an old pneumatic tube that went into a department store. It's horizontal right now, but it was vertical. And so if you recognize the the carrier, it would go in through the tube and then through here and then out here. And when I saw this, I really saw like a spaceship, rocket ship, submarine, and I found these really great. These are underwater photography domes, and just to show you how, the karma of this, or like just how it's meant to be. This was the same exact size as the opening for the pneumatic tube, and I was able to do it on both sides. So how cool is that I found something that was just like the perfect fit for that. And that happens more than I can say, really. It's just kind of meant to be. And all this is all repurposed parts. So these are old brass fire hose nozzles, bearings, impellers. This actually this is a Josh Simpson Mega Planet kind of glass planet. But underneath it is a shotgun pellet sorter. And who would have known that would have even existed? Look how beautiful it is. And then the base of it is an old book binding press. So you can kind of, but it's upside down. It went the other way. And you would put like a lever in here, and then there's a big screw there, and you would kind of screw down onto the books when the bindings were being glued. And just one of the fun things that I noticed when I was building this, if you look at it this way, it kind of looks like some sort of animal or frog with a mouth. So that's so that's kind of the type of work that I really love doing here. That's a game table that I did. Incorporating an old salvage door and more pneumatic tubes. There's Luna, our cat. Some of this stuff too is that I just collected over the years, and I love just having displayed, and potentially could become part of a project. Build the cat. I could do a steampunk cat at some point. This is another piece that I did. The theme here is X-ray tubes. I call this the X-ray Voyager. And that's an actual, antique X-ray tube there and also there. And I love using the Edison bulbs. Let me see that, see, doing a little traveling. This one was really fun because we all have these older movie projectors, and this might be a Bell and Howell. Actually, what is this? I'm not sure. Thought it was a Bell and Howell. But what I did is I used this kind of as a flying machine, using all these parts and pieces. That's actually, that exit light is actually from a movie theater. So what I love doing is just finding appropriate parts and creating, creating a themed piece. This one's called Movies Help Us Fly. During COVID, I've been very productive because I've been quarantined here and been able to work on a lot of stuff. And this actually, I wanted to do a bar, steampunk bar. So I call this my Quarantini Bar. And I don't know if you've ever seen these old Rudd water heaters, but I was able to convert this kind of into a liquor bar. You can see I have my wine down here. And liquor bottle dispensers, where there's a valve here and it comes out the spigot. These are old factory explosion-proof lights, and I kind of use as the heads for these guys. This part of the front bar is it's called a quick print foil stamper, and when they used to personalize suitcases, they would put the typeset in here with gold foil, and then down would it come on the suitcase part, and it would imprint the gold foil. And why they have the C channel right here was because the bottom of the suitcase would go into that space. I added this, recently, but look at that shape. Isn't that wonderful? The way that this machine kind of does that. This is a foundry mold, a foundry pattern of a pneumatic tube, which you just saw over there, and I made it into a wine holder. And just look at the shapes. The shapes just work perfectly with each other. This is a time-traveling steampunk clock, and foundry molds or foundry patterns were done by craftsmen in wood. And what they would do, this is actually a hatch door for a submarine mold. And what they would do is they would take the wood mold and then impress it in hardened sand and create kind of a negative space, and then pour the metal into the space, and then you'd get the metal part. But I loved using the hatch door as part of time travel, because hatch and portals are kind of a big theme in time travel. It's a working clock. These are innards to a pocket watch. But the amazing thing is that you see the little nubs to this. Those are all there, and those pocket watch innards were the perfect size. Those are pendulums, doorknob. So that's my time clock. This is actually I was inspired by Victorian diving bells. So there's a guy inside this. It's a piece of lab glass, actually. Let's see, and he's being kind of fulfilled with his ear from the mothership up here, and that the main part of the mothership is a flying shuttle out of textile loom, and then those are weather station globes up there. This is the pipe dream, and most everything that you see in there is pipe related. So they're either pipes, the guy's sitting on a pipe holder, the main rocket is a lighter for a pipe. There's pipe cleaner. There's the side pipes here are really incredible. Those are from the 1960s, actually I think maybe 1930s, 1940s. They're Art Deco style. And look at this guy. You see the elephant? That is actually a pipe. And this is Meter Man. He's a retail display mannequin, and he's made up of old vacuum tubes and all sorts of parts and pieces. One of my favorite parts is the head itself. The head is a real electrical meter. And look at that. It looks just like a face. The guy who designed that, must have been thinking face. I mean, I added the insulator eyes, but everything else was there, and it was the perfect size and fit. This was another kind of piece that I did that is based on the Star Wars land speeder, Luke Skywalker's land speeder. And I'm doing a project working with a client who wants to do a Garwood speedboat. And Garwood was a famous mahogany speedboat builder, and he actually used Packard engines as part of his design. And so I kind of came up with these model plane engines as part of the design. And look how beautiful this stand is. These are industrial legs that were on some table, four legs, and I was able to kind of create this. It looks kind of like a walking, base.
Unbelievable.
And just to kind of bring you through, well, one of the things that people love when I give them tours is like just putting a Victorian frame around the TV. It's kind of a simple thing to do. It has some impact. This is what I call the butterfly effect. The really incredible thing about this piece is I found these two Victorian prosthetic arms and hands. And these are, the story is that they were from a World War I veteran who lost both his arms, and he used these for many years. And look at the fingers. See how they're kind of burnt? He was a smoker, and that's why those fingers are singed.
Jeez.
This is a female form using an 1800s dough mixer. Isn't that crazy? They're made in Germany. And so I paired it up with this modern whisk for the head, that you would see in a modern dough mixer. And if you look at the eyes, the eyes actually came from a mortician. These are because when morticians have to work with people who had damaged faces, they would use this for kind of almost like reconstructive surgery in a way. But they were just like a piece of art themselves. I use that. So I saw the question, where do I find these pieces? All over the place. I mean, if you've been to Massachusetts, there is a town called Brimfield, which is the next town over from us, and they have an antique show, one of the largest antique shows in the world, 3 times a year. And hold on, let me just switch over to again. So they have antique shows 3 times a year, and I can't tell you the stuff that I find there. So a lot of times, if I'm looking for something specific, then it's great. I can use it in a project. Other times it's like, wow, I don't even know that existed. I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but it's definitely something that I will use as part of a project. So I'll just bring it home and kind of wait for the right moment. But to tell you the truth, my big secret is eBay or Etsy. I'm buying stuff all over the world, from England, from Portugal, from Russia. It doesn't matter anymore in terms of the cost, because the cost is not that much more than buying it domestically, and also the timing. It used to take months to get things, but I'm getting sometimes things faster from Australia than I do here. So it really has opened up, and if you know the right search term, things that I would never know where to get, 10, 20 pop up. And so it's really, I don't know how I could do what I do now without the internet and without eBay, because it really has made my life a lot simpler, and finding these objects that are, that provide meaning and relevance to the projects I'm involved with. All right, so any other questions?
Bruce, I don't think you just woke up one morning and all of a sudden you started doing this. Maybe you did. Did you have a teacher? Did you have somebody that lit the spark and got you going and helped you along the way? How did you get to where you are right now?
Well, I think it was a long road. I've always been interested in antiques and history and architectural salvage and architecture, design, tech, science fiction. It was all there. And as a kid, I loved taking things apart. I was very curious. But I didn't really understand or know where all that could lead. My educational background is in marketing. I have an MBA from Duke, and for many years had a very successful marketing business. Still have a marketing business, really. As I said, 60, 70% of what I do on a daily basis is marketing and educating, because really people don't know about steampunk. They don't know what's possible. And so I have to kind of inspire and educate people on what they can do. And so in terms of a eureka moment, it really wasn't until when we bought our house in Sharon, and just kind of said, well, wouldn't it be cool to kind of, looking at that antique, looking at that object and saying, listen, I understand what it did. I know the history of it. Technology has passed it by, time has passed it by, but why can't we try to incorporate the beauty, the pride and craftsmanship, the durability, just the creative design process with modern technology and conveniences and appliances. That kind of hit me as, we can do that. You have to believe. You have to believe that it's possible, and that you have to believe too that the objects are out there. The things are out there, and that you can make the connections to the past, present, and future. And once I was kind of doing that in my home, and people loved it, and I saw I was making these really good, incredible connections and making this functional artwork, kind of the switch went off in my brain and said, I really want to do this as a business. And I started out doing it kind of on a larger home restoration scale. When I started Modvic, I started in 2007, 2008. If you remember what happened in 2007 and 2008, it was probably the worst time to start a new business like this, especially because we bought a Victorian home in North Attleboro, Mass, to restore it. And of course, we did an incredible job, but at the end, no one could buy the home in 2008 because of the recession depression. No one could sell their house. So we literally lost our shirts. But it's a matter of resilience. It's a matter of pivoting. It's a matter of just kind of, getting up after you fall down and saying that, I'm going to make this work in some way. And it took many years, and I'm still trying to figure it out, Jim, on how to kind of make a living at this. But after how many years? 15 years, I'm just starting to figure it out. So if you can just keep at it and keep working it and keep evolving and keep adapting and persevering, you hopefully get to a point where it ends up working. And for me, I kind of had no other choice, because when I left the corporate world and working for larger companies behind me, I said this is my only way, is to follow my passions and to do what I really enjoy doing. I've had a lot of adversity in my life. I'm a cancer survivor. My father died when I was 17 years old. I've been through bankruptcy. I've been through a lot of different challenges in my life, and I've really used those challenges as a way to be able to kind of push forward, move forward, test myself, and to kind of get to a point where I really feel comfortable in my own skin and comfortable about my skills and ways to be able to help others in what I do.
Do you have somebody that you're under your wing, so to speak, that you are teaching this business to?
Well, I don't have like a mentoree, although I work with a lot of young artists who are just trying to come into their own themselves and are at certain levels. And so by collaborating with them and exposing them to this thought process and to the type of level and quality of functional artwork, it pushes them. And so, I don't know kind of where things are going, but hopefully I am able to inspire and influence. As I told you, with Steampunk Kinetics, I work with kids with autism and vocational students, and giving them alternate paths other than kind of the standard, automotive work or HVAC, giving them another way to be able to express themselves. And so, I'm hoping that those connections, in the long run, help to improve people's lives.
That's great. Does anybody else have any questions for Bruce?
Yeah, I just have a little question. Bruce, I love your work. That's fantastic stuff. I just wondered, what is your primary source of fastening stuff together? Is it welding, soldering, nuts and bolts? What do you use?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of my larger installations, of course, as I said, I can't do welding here. So we do it off-site. For the larger installations, welding is primary. But for here, with my smaller objects, I pride myself on using fasteners. So a lot of bolts and nuts, a lot of brass, traditional metals. I use stainless steel also, sometimes bronze. But the fun part about it is I have all these older objects that I'm trying to assemble in a really creative, meaningful way. But how do you make those connections and do it in a way that really is seamless? But you want to show the connections, because it's not all about the past and using old materials. It's connecting to the present and future. So I celebrate those new fasteners or connectors in a way. So when you're looking at the pieces, you're going, look what Bruce did. He's using like this new part to connect some old parts. And It's not done in a tacky way. It's all kind of all makes sense. You know, sometimes I will change the patina a little bit so it doesn't scream, I'm new. You know, it has a little bit of sense of age to it. But using fasteners and not using glues. In some instances, you know, when I'm needing to melt something to a piece of glass, you know, I'll use that kind of permanent glue. But it's mostly fasteners. And to tell you the truth, fasteners is really a wonderful sensibility because it's all about adaptive reuse. I'm taking objects that are 50, 75, 100 years old and giving them new life by, you know, putting them in new forms and transforming them. I'm expecting 25, 50, 75 years, people are going to take my artwork and take it apart and use it for something else because nothing is permanent. And it will always be kind of memorialized in pictures. But someday these pieces will also be disassembled and made into new artwork. Thanks for the question.
Well, the question I have is not necessarily a question directly to you, but there's two museums that you probably drool over. One is the National Precision Museum in Windsor, Vermont, where they have a lot of stuff that has to do with industrial precision. And the other one is in Morristown, New Jersey, called the Morris Museum, which they have a lot of. There's I'm trying to think the name of the collection now. The Heineken collection, which has a lot of mechanical musical instruments and automata that might.
I've been there. Yeah.
So yeah, I know they were hosting I think it was called the Automata Convention, but you know, the pandemic has put a squash out for the past couple of years. So
yeah, I went a few years ago when they had the exhibition for the automatons, and a lot of I'm inspired by automatons as I was showing you Ari, but using objects, using antiques and different remnants from an earlier period to build these kind of functional robots. And my next, I have no kind of restrictions in terms of using modern technology too, because that again is part of the formula: history plus art plus technology. So using digital technology, using AI, using projection mapping, all of this stuff that people are starting to employ to build robots and to build kind of interaction with machines. I'm going to be incorporating that into my artwork also. Great.
What do you do, Bruce, when you're stumped?
So, good question. And when I'm stumped, my process is so organic, Jim, and because finding one piece leads me to another, and then how do I fit this shape to the next shape? What is the connecting piece? And a lot of times I just don't know. I don't know what's out there, and it's like I have to be patient. I can't I can't have this or expect it to make this stuff overnight, because it has to happen in an organic way. And so when I'm stumped, that means that I'm lacking information, that I don't have enough to be able to get to the next step. So I need to do more research. So by just kind of going out and, and again, with the internet, I'm just amazed how I can find information, almost immediately with what, with what my question is. And then a lot of it is kind of like serendipitous. Like I'm looking for something, but then I find something else. I go, oh my God, that's even better than what I was thinking. And I can't believe this exists. I had no idea that this was even out there. And so this is, you can't give up. It's almost again this belief system of that it can be done. I can make this connection. It is out there, and I just have to find it. And don't beat myself up, that I can't figure it out. And a lot of times too, as you probably also when you're working on your projects, is that you get to a point where I can't go any further. If I go any further, I'm going to harm my project. I'm being sloppy. I don't want to, do something that I'm going to regret later. Although I've done that a lot of times, and because of the type of artwork I do, I celebrate that mistake. So if I think I've made a mistake, I drilled a hole where I wasn't supposed to. We're going to do something with that hole. We're going to make it look like it was purposeful. So that's part of, the celebration of this type of art form is really kind of reveling in the mistakes and creating an opportunity to do something different.
Do you have an art background at all?
No, I do not have an art background. My wife is a fantastic artist and fashion designer, and I've always been interested in art, and I was always handy, in terms of being able to do projects, around the house or whatever. And it wasn't really until my 40s where I found this passion and then started to experiment. And to tell you the truth, in the last 2 years with COVID, because I was quarantined, I've tested myself to do more. And I found that I am capable of doing more than what I thought I could when I began all this.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Bruce?
Just a comment. Bruce, kind of reminds me of this term I recently been studying, embodied cognition. And that is, once the piece is in your hand, and the ideas come from nowhere.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, we're all very visual and tactile. And you're right. If I don't have a piece, I mean, I can get certain ideas by visually seeing a picture of it. That is really helpful. Kind of gets me started. But I don't have the foresight, or I don't have the ability to look at that picture and see how all the pieces are going to fit together. It's like I've got to have those in hand, and I have to start playing with them. And you're right, it's embodied cognition. It's kind of getting all of the parts together like a puzzle and starting to feel like it's all coming together. And I'm telling you, sometimes I am so impressed with myself that, that I figured this out, that it came together in such an amazing way that is like this trifecta of visual excitement and meaningfulness and relevance that speaks to me, and hopefully will speak to others.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bruce, we had some questions from YouTube. I'll let Edward Katie present those. He's a moderator on YouTube.
Yes, actually both questions are from the same person, Andrew Eastep, if I'm saying his last name correctly. The first one is, do you make any elements or strictly assemble existing objects?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you make any elements or strictly assemble existing objects?
So good question. So a lot of times, I mean, probably 80% of my installations are found objects. So they're they're antiques, they're salvage, and I'm kind of assembling. But and I'm using, as I said before, modern fasteners to kind of make connections. But sometimes I could look and like I'm not going to find what what I need. So it comes down to fabrication. So I'll design a piece. I'll come up with kind of whatever my vision is, what this thing's going to look like, and then I will make the piece. And sometimes I will kind of take existing pieces and then cut it up and in a way where I can reuse it for what I want. Or I work with really talented craftspeople and welders that will actually fabricate the piece for me. I kind of give them an idea of the design. They'll make it, and then I'll put it together. Good question.
Yep. And Andrew's second question is juxtaposing existing objects part of what makes something steampunk?
So great question. As I mentioned to you before about Gynusian thinking and creative problem solving and opposites. A lot of times, in steampunk design, especially people who are just starting out with it, it's really more of an aesthetic, and it's kind of just giving homage to the industrial age. And people, they associate gears with machines and the mechanical and the industrial age. And so they're taking gears and just kind of gluing it on something and calling it steampunk. That's great in terms of whatever level you're at. But I see steampunk going way beyond that, as I had mentioned. And part of what I promote is this way of using steampunk as a way to bring the past, present, and future together. And, can you remind me of the question again? I'm 59 years old. I just kind of lost the train of thought. What was the question again?
Is juxtaposing existing parts or objects of
yes. Okay.
Juxtaposing existing objects part of what makes something steampunk.
Right. Now, and I've thought about this. It's not about juxtaposition. Okay, think of that word juxtaposition or eclectic. Okay, what you're doing in juxtaposition is you're taking one object and then putting it next to a very different object. And that very different object, usually when it's eclectic, it's different age times. So, putting something that was from the 1910s next to the 1970s. That's juxtaposition. I am talking about fusion, right? So I am taking an old object and integrating it, fusing it with a new object. So it becomes one. It becomes something new that is cohesive, that is not two elements anymore. It's one new invention. And so that is what steampunk is all about. It's creative problem solving, it's an inventing, and it's a fusion of these elements coming together. Hopefully that makes sense.
Does to me.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see if Andy responds.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Jim, if I could just make a quick observation, I see a remarkable number of overlaps with model railroading. Whether we're all historians, whether we're creating a work of art in 3 dimensions that has to function when we're finished, it has to move, it has lights, it has sound, it has activity, and we all creatively reuse bits and pieces we find, whether it's from a arts and crafts store or from a sewing store or any other number of places that we find ourselves, and we look at it and say, that might be useful on my model railroad. So I never thought of model railroading as having a relationship to steampunk, but I see that there really is.
Oh, absolutely. Well, especially, trains and that mode of travel has a very romantic, nostalgic connection, to the Victorian period, of course. And model building and what you're doing is it's a very similar process. If you go a little bit further in terms of taking the history, as you were mentioning, and then connecting it more somehow with modern technology, you'd have that strong element also within your hobby, within your work.
For example, just a few weeks ago, we had a fellow do a presentation on photo etch, which of course was created for the computer industry. And it's been adopted in model railroading, and people use it in all kinds of creative ways, a very modern computer-driven technology that model railroaders have adopted. And there are lots of others. There's lots of electronics that have been adopted, that were created for all kinds of other purposes, that a model railroader said, wow, I can make sound doing this, I can do controls doing this. And so there is a lot of adapting of technology and very modern stuff. And of course, computers. People drive their model railroads today with computers.
Right. And just to give you a sense, I mean, there was around 40 people or so as part of this, as part of your evening tonight. And I saw that the demographic, the average age skewed a little bit older. And with steampunk, and from what I've, when I'm talking to people who are interested in this, it skews younger, but also has, it attracts, preteens to seniors. And so we have an art form here, we have an aesthetic, we have a culture, whatever you want to call steampunk, that is just an incredible attraction from young to old. So from your standpoint too, if you wanted to bring more people into your hobby, into what you're doing, if you did focus on the tech part of it and fusing it with the traditional and the older parts, you could bring in more people into the hobby, younger people, to kind of keep things moving for the future. So, that's just an idea for your organization in terms of being able to, and I know, Jim, you had mentioned that you would like to get younger people involved, and it's just a possibility for being able to do that using steampunk as a way to bring them in.
I talked to a younger modeler today, and he told me something that I'd never heard a model railroader talk about before. He's going back to the early days of model railroading, back in the 40s and 50s. And he's finding accessories that were made by American Flyer, by Lionel, back in the early days. And maybe one of them would have somebody that would climb a ladder, turn on a spotlight, and then slide down, the pipe or something to get back to the ground. And what he's doing, and that was an automated accessory back in the day. What he's doing is he is automating that automated accessory. So now the person doesn't just run up the stairs, he takes one step at a time. And it will take him a minute to walk up this flight of stairs. Once he gets up there, then he's there for a few seconds, and then the light comes on. Then once the light comes on, it takes him a few seconds, instead of just boom, he's back on the ground, to slide slowly down this rod. Yep. And I had never heard of a model railroader before taking an accessory like that and modifying it to the degree that he is, and that's his hobby. That's the part of model railroading that he enjoys doing.
Right. Well, I think that is telling you a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
And so that's the future of model railroading.
Really, it may well be.
Yeah. And I think it just would be, as we move into the future, and a lot of these incredible earlier model railroad sets become, rarer, or just something that we want to remember and we want to bring to life again. There could be the opportunity to incorporate new technologies into the kind of into the chassis to these older pieces. And so you have, again, the beauty and the pride and craftsmanship and all of that alive, but moving and experiencing with modern technology. That's the art of what we're talking about. And if you can get people who are interested in doing more of that and sharing that, hopefully you'll attract more people and carry on for the next generation.
I agree. I think there's a definite market for that right now. Well, Bruce, I know this has been a while, but thank you so much for being here this evening. I can't thank you enough. I hope everybody else has gotten as much out of your conversation as I have. And thank you so very much for being here.
Well, thank you, Jim, for inviting me. And if anyone has any other questions or if they want to see my work, they can go to my website, modvic.com. That's M as in Mary, O, D as in David, V as in Victor, I, C as in Charlie.com, modvic.com. I also have a quarterly newsletter. You can see all the great steampunk upcoming projects, and so you want to sign up for that, and we can stay in communication that way.
And if you ever decide to do a steampunk on model railroaders, don't forget me.
Absolutely, you'll be the first one I call.
Thanks so much, Bruce.
Thanks, Jim. Take care. Bye all. Okay, bye-bye.
Well, folks, that's our show for this evening. I really do appreciate everybody being here. I hope you enjoyed Bruce and his conversation, because I really think that there's something there that we ought to pay attention to. I do see a lot of similarities between the kind of concepts that he puts forward and thinks about and model railroading. So I hope you enjoyed that tonight. It's something a little different, I know, but I thought it was worthwhile. Next week, we've got a great show. We have another hobby shop owner that's going to join us. Clark, of course, will be back, and we have some other people. So I hope you'll be able to come back and join us next Wednesday. And I hope you'll consider joining Chris Blackmore on Saturdays, starting the 22nd of January. So thank you so much again, and I will turn it over to Clark, who is going to lead us in the after show. Clark, welcome.
Actually, Clark put in the thing in the chat saying he'll be right back. So we gotta, make fun of him while he's gone.
Well, then we won't go to Clark for the after show. What did anybody have to say about Bruce? Did you enjoy it? I mean, did you learn anything?
I thought it was excellent. The creativity aspect of it, I picked up on real early in the thing, and I'm sitting here relating it to the various things. But the overall show tonight was excellent all the way around, I think.
This modeler that I mentioned that is taking these older tin plate kind of accessories that we all remember. We probably had some as a kid ourselves. And really, I call it automating the automated accessories of the past. I think that's what he's doing. And I asked him, I said, well, are you using Arduinos? How are you doing this? He said, no, I'm a computer programmer. He said, I'm doing this from scratch. I am literally making everything that I'm using to re-automate the automated accessories of the past. Now, I find that fascinating. I know it's not scale model railroading as all of us are used to. And I don't want to force things down everybody's throat just because it seems interesting to me. Would you be interested in hearing from him?
Don't everybody speak at once.
Yeah,
I think it's a great
I
idea.
think so. I think that's one of the big things that in a lot of ways we're sometimes missing is the animation.
I do too. And and he talks about, he talks about doing this with a wide range of the old accessories. He told me, he said, remember the old log loaders? And I do. I remember having old log loader, right? And you press the button and all the logs fell out, right? Well, he has automated it now where you press the button and one log falls out. If you want
Remember the
two
barrel.
logs, if you want to have two logs, you got to press the button again. If you want three, you got to press the button again. Well, to automate something like that and to create, in effect, a new accessory using basically the old accessory that we all grew up with, that we know that when we pressed the button, 4 logs fell on the car, and that was it. Yeah, I was just amazed talking to him. I've never heard anybody doing anything like that in model railroading before.
Actually, I see on some of the Facebook posts, there's a number of guys who are trying to do stuff historical with old Tycho stuff with, and that's all they're collecting and stuff. As you say, it's not scale model railroading, but it is sort of the historical past of what the hobby is, and that's what they're doing. And it's kind of interesting, to see some of this old stuff revived again.
Well, and not just revived, but in effect making it a whole different accessory. You remember the guy that we used to have a metal house, and the guy had a flag in his hand, and the train went by, and his hand went crazy for however long the train was by.
Yeah.
He's animated it where the train goes by and the guy slowly raises his hand, keeps his hand up. The train passes by, slowly lowers his hand again. It's a totally different accessory from the one that we used to play with.
Well, he's old now.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Does this young fellow have, did he mention that he has a group of fellows that are like-minded and working on things like this?
He does not. I haven't talked to him. I've got a colleague. He's going to call me in the morning. I'm going to talk to him again because, he doesn't. I told him, I said, I'd love to profile you in one of my articles, but I said, you're not a scale model railroader. And he said, no, I'm not. He said, I'm really not interested in that. I'm interested in the old stuff. And he said, I'm interested in what I can take that old stuff to be and then redo it. And when I first started talking to him, and I said, well, what I hear you saying is you are reanimating the old animated things. And he said, no, I wouldn't say that. And we kept talking, and finally he said, I guess you're right. He said, I am reanimating them, aren't I? And I said, yeah, that's how I see it. You're making an animated toy into something totally different in a lot of ways. And I said, I've never heard anybody doing that before with the old stuff. Normally, everybody said, well, we got to restore it to the way it operated in 1941. Well, lots of luck with that these days. But this really appealed to me in a lot of ways because I can see that particularly younger people that have the technology knowledge to be able to do those kind of things, that could well be a part of model railroading in the future. And I don't hear anybody talking about it.
Well, there are guys who are, and we've got a guy up here in our club who's strict information or strict interest is the animation part with the computers and stuff. Model railroading is the aside or the vehicle to get there. Hey, Pat Rivard, maybe we could send you down there and he could animate you a bit. All right. So I'm back. If you want to go from there, Jim, we can go.
Go.
Well, maybe this young fellow would be kind of a portal, and possibly if he asked some of his friends to watch on the YouTube, you might just be attracting some younger people. And
but
we don't.
You never know. But if you don't mind, I am going to invite him to join us one night and let him tell you about it himself, and you let you hear him talk about it, because it's a subject that I don't hear people talk about. I hear people talk about animation, but it's so rare, and
yeah, it would be interesting.
I enjoyed Bruce tonight, and that was totally different topic than what we
Yeah.
normally, how we speak here and, scale. But I'm looking back at, and I guess because my age, I sit and I start thinking about where I was in model railroading 30, 40 years ago, the magazine articles earlier in the show tonight, talking about sway back cars, the gentleman building out of cardboard, boxes, cutting them up and using them. And I'm very impressed with this final product. And it just makes us, maybe appreciate what we have now, but with all the technology and ready-made stuff, and then all the latest kits coming out and all the parts made for us to go in the kits and so on and so forth. So looking back, it's not a bad thing.
Yep, pretty cool.
Now, why would somebody want to animate me?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, you got a point.
Just because Clark would want to pull the strings, that's all.
Marionette, oh no. Hey, welcome to the after show in part of New Tracks. For those who are on watching on Zoom, we have a lot of fun here, sort of doing the after show, and I call on people. I do have to ask Ted the usual question. What's for dinner?
Oh, here we go again.
What's your usual question, Clark?
What's for dinner?
Food.
Food. Thank you.
Ted, I do have to give you a thank you so much, because if it hadn't have been for you, I would have never been able to ask this young guy today if he used Arduinos. I think he thought I was really, really smart.
Oh, Jim, you're no dummy. Give yourself some credit.
No. You're the one that got me started on Arduinos.
Well, sorry about that.
There's a question on YouTube from Heath from Humanity Junction. Wants to know, what do you think of remote operations and the technology around that?
Well, I think
he actually a little bit of context. He's actually on his website. He's actually setting up a small little in-scale time saver that is actually designed. He's got a camera on it, and you can actually log in and move the stuff around.
If he would send me an email, I'd love to talk to him.
Well, you've talked to him before.
Yeah, you have. He has been on here.
Oh, who is it?
His name is Heath. Oh, I can't think of his last name. Hurwitz, I want to say. I could be completely wrong on that.
Yeah. If you want to do it, if we want to.
He's the one that has Humanity Junction YouTube channel.
And so if you want to look at remote operations, you might want to get the Silicon Valley lines. There's a model railroad. There's one in Silicon Valley that is very automated. In fact, their dispatcher dispatches their operating sessions from his house.
Yeah, he's actually, that's where he got the idea.
Yeah,
that's where he got the idea from, and he's been in contact with him.
During the NMRA X convention that Phil successfully was part of, the Silicon Valley had slots, and you could ask to run, and I got in on I think it was 2 episodes, and got to run a train. And the other 2 guys that were running trains, one was from England and the other fellow was from Australia. So it was like the Commonwealth was running this layout, and it was fascinating, just fascinating. Now, basically, we went around the loop, but we did pass each other, and there was a few things where we had to slow down, and they suggested we blow our whistle, but we could see they had a camera on the front of the locomotive, so we could, yeah, that's fine, Ken. And we could watch as the towns came upon us, and you'd slow down and blow the whistle, and it was quite neat. I don't know if we could. Do you think we could do something like that on a session, Phil?
You're muted.
That's what I was
I was
wondering.
muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think, we could probably ask them, if they would come in, they have done some presentation where they've talked about it and that. I don't know if they'd have a session or anything, but
Yeah. Well,
we
maybe we
could
could do like a
definitely talk to
demo,
them. Yeah.
a demo session or something.
Well, it's kind of interesting. One of the things we were thinking about doing with them for one of our events was having somebody come in and talk about operations and what the skills are you need, and then go there and do demos. And you could also do that remotely too. So the idea is, for someone who's never operated, to show them, how do you do a set out on a trailing point switch? How do you do a trail out on a set out on a leading switch? How do you find and sort some cars in the yard? And, if you've done those things and you kind of understand it, they don't sound very scary. But if you've never done it before, they sound kind of scary.
Yeah.
The first question somebody asks you is, when you look at your train, you got to understand which are the cars that are trailing and which are leading in terms of your setouts. Just right there, if you don't know what somebody's talking about, what that means, and the differentiation in work. So it's kind of like, how do you get somebody comfortable with understanding those things without having to go in the fire of actually doing a job without any training?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
So very interesting. Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe maybe Phil, you could investigate that for us and get back to us. I don't want to add too much more to your plate.
Let me ping it while we're talking about some other stuff. Let me ping them, see if they'd be interested in having someone come and do a little talk.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who else? Who's on here? Wave your hand if you are a first timer here. And is there anybody first time?
Well, Al and John put up their hands.
John just raised his hand.
Who did?
John Reynolds.
John Reynolds.
Yeah.
Al
All right.
Collins.
Yeah, but he did a clinic, so he's not really a first timer. But go ahead, John.
You're muted.
You have to unmute yourself. Hold on, maybe I can do it from here. Because apparently I am now running this.
You're in charge. What you can do is tell him that he can unmute, but you can't unmute him.
Oh yeah, I can. I can ask to unmute. There we go.
Yes. You remember, he said he's new to Zoom, so
That's all right. Well, if you move your mouse around to the bottom, you should be able.
It looks like he's got it on an iPad or something.
Oh, you might see the little, looks like a mic, and just click on it.
Yeah, remember
The mic would be on the top.
Oh, a mic's on the top on this one. Okay, mine's on the bottom. So
yeah, mine's on the lower left.
oh well.
Hey,
Hey! High five!
Old dog learned one new trick. Amazing.
Hey, listen, maybe we should animate you too.
Oh, brother.
But, yeah, this is my first after show because my phone died on the last one.
Oh.
I was down at 0 power. This time I got smart and plugged it into a charger.
Look at you. Look at you with technology.
Yeah, right.
Listen, I'm not much better. Somebody said, "Do you do this?" And I went, "What the hell is that? And can you take medication for it?"
Yeah, really. By the way, I love that steampunk thing.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting, wasn't it?
It was amazing, and learning about, even though I think it's way outside my my skill set, learning about what that young fellow's doing with programming and reanimating some of those old animated things would just be something really amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think one thing that Jim is really good at is finding the obscure. But it all goes back. And I've said this, even though, and Jim has said it too, we talk about scale model railroading as really the base for a lot of us, but to the expansion of like what he did with the steampunk, what you're doing with the cardstock, what you're doing, what other people have been doing with other materials, it may give somebody a great idea and you can develop that towards your scale modeling. So you can't just, and I'm a purist, I have to admit, I'm like, it's not scale modeling, but the more the more you learn about it.
When you're in ON30, the scale modeling and ON30 are kind of not in the same park for the most part. Semi-scale, yes. Scale, not exactly.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we like to have a good time here, but that was certainly interesting. I think one of the things that is of interest to our whole group is the outside stuff that, and even in the after show, we talk a lot about just general life stuff. So it's kind of interesting. So it makes good things happen here. I was gonna say, where did Earl go? Earl's gone. Hello, Martin. How are you?
Busy as always.
Oh, well, perfect. Thanks for coming out. We love what you do.
Well, yeah, well, if I'm not in the shop building something, I'm busy at the keyboard writing.
I was gonna say you're editing something, eh?
Yeah, I already this evening already wrote the next column for the magazine.
Boy.
So I've got my columns already in the folders out into 2023.
Oh, I dislike people like you. I am not a writer. I really have to.
Oh, I'm not either. I just fake it.
Well,
Yeah, sure you do.
I can type, but it all becomes one sentence.
You learn your literature from Goethe.
Yeah, and then I have this program that's called Grammatically, and I just run it through that, and I hope it comes out in some kind of semblance.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
it's taken me a few decades to be what I declared as almost adequate.
Yes, yeah, I'm with you. Go ahead. Sorry, Martin.
No, it's something you got to practice at.
It's like anything. It's like anything.
Yeah, and be prepared to accept all the criticism of your wife.
Yes.
Martin,
you know what? And she is a very good.
Yeah.
And she gets me. So she just shakes her head and goes, "I'll be back."
Right. Yeah. After the first 20 years, mine stopped agreeing to be a proofreader. So
Yeah, you do what you can. That's why. Well, that's why I pay that little subscription fee for Grammatically.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, White River actually has somebody on staff who proofreads everything. She proofreads everything. She doesn't care she doesn't care what it's about. She just proofreads it.
Hey, Darren, we haven't seen you for a while. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Clark. How about you?
Well, I'm better now that I'm not researching 55 pieces of fast track stuff. Okay, a little inside joke, and I hate inside jokes, but Darren sent me a list, a whole bunch of fast track stuff, and he says, I'm thinking of getting all this. And I go, well, so I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm going, well, you don't really need this. You need to have that. You need to have this. For those who don't know, I'm connected with Fast Tracks and I know the products very well. And anyway, so then he sends me a note and he goes, hey, you haven't spent too much time on this, have you? And I said, well, I'm doing some work for you. I'll get it to you shortly. And he goes, well, stop. I go, why? He says, well, I watched the Proto 48 thing. I'm going to go to Proto 48. I went, really?
Okay, I'll have you know that I spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday inventorying my HO stuff so that I can sell it all.
Yes. Well, don't blame. You have to blame the show and a guy named Paul Thompson.
Don't involve me in his nonsense at all.
And David Schultz and his son.
I've already called Paul several times this week and blamed him. So
Nice, nice. All right. Well, that's
I've,
good.
I've told him point blank, he makes his own decisions.
Yes, sure. All right. Well,
Well, you know, I
He's a
wrote
big,
back.
he's a big boy. He can make his own decisions.
I thought it was like an April Fool's joke on, you know, the first of the year instead. But so I wrote him back and said, you know, you could go from these smaller scales to like O scale, then G scale, and then you know, and then finally get to the 7.5 inch stuff you can really ride on. And so, but you could skip all those scales in between, just go from HO to ride along. I thought that was a great idea.
oh
Okay,
no, where's the fun in that?
Oh,
of
no.
but Roy, like I
Yeah.
said in my email, there is no scale I can ride on. I barely fit full size.
Ah, yes, there is. I know you can ride on the 7.5 inch stuff. And if that's too small, you can go to somebody that's got 15 inch gauge.
TGC is cheaper.
Yeah, that's one quarter scale.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Freddie, how are you today? Are you in Florida enjoying the weather while we're getting snow?
Of course.
Okay. Well,
But the temperature did drop down here. We're only in the 60s now.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, I know it's
my
rough.
gee.
Those coats are looking better every day.
everybody give
Every
a
way,
one
yeah.
finger salute to those in California and those in Florida.
Well, we appreciate everything we can get down here.
Oh well,
I heard it was cold in the Panhandle.
yeah.
Panhandle was cold.
Aren't you glad though you weren't in Virginia?
Oh.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that road very well, way too well.
Like, have you thought about a snowplow?
Oh, I just don't go out there.
No, I wouldn't either. If
Even when it's not snowing, I don't go down that road if I can help it. That's one of the top 5 worst stretches of highway in the country. So let's throw snow on it and see how much better it gets.
one time I was in, it was February, and I was in San Francisco for an NMRA meeting. And we came out and there was actually a 1/2 inch of snow.
Yeah.
And the guy, one of the California guys looks at me and he throws me his car keys. He says, I ain't driving in this. You're used to it. So,
He might have been smart.
yeah. So, well, I said, you know, hold my beer. This could be fun. But,
You know, so it's not just California. I ended up in Dallas. I flew into Dallas and I was flying through, and the planes all got shut down. Got to spend the night in the airport in the lounge. And the next day I didn't have to go anywhere, so I rented a car, and they'd had 2 feet of snow in Dallas.
Ooh.
And they have 17 pieces of snow removal equipment in Dallas, which consist of trucks that they can drop gravel on the. They don't have anything to remove snow in any meaningful way whatsoever from the city. And I'm not talking about the airport, I'm talking about the city. And so it was, you were driving around and these people have no concept how to drive in snow. I mean, literally you would drive down a block and there would be 3 accidents and they were just going everywhere. It's pretty amazing. So
well, we're not immune to it. The first snowfall in Toronto, I can tell you, it's bumper pool.
Yeah. But then imagine the first snowfall in decades. It's something beyond bumper pool. It's pretty amazing, but it's the same here.
Around here in Toronto, I drive for a living, and they mention snow in August in the middle of a heat wave, and everybody forgets, oh my God, it's going to snow. Well, it's 104 degrees. It's not going to snow today, people.
Hey, I remember I flew into San Francisco and a friend of mine drove me to the regional convention in, in Reno. And it was in early spring, and you had to have change to go over the mountain range, and it was snowing like hell up there. So that was an interesting thing.
You got to watch flying, because I remember one time flying out of Vancouver, and we were all in short sleeve shirts and, and we landed in Calgary to pick up some passengers on the way through to Toronto. And when they opened the door in Calgary, the guy got on in a parka and the snow flurries blew the whole length of the plane. And it was like, just unbelievable. And I said right then and there, I said, I have no more desire to ever go back to Calgary.
So
that's like the people, all the snowbirds, they get on the planes here in Toronto and then their shorts and they fly down to Florida. Then on the way home, they got their parkas.
So it's kind of just the opposite. So years ago, I worked for a Canadian company and I was going to Toronto, or actually to Ottawa. And I did the trip fairly regular. And it was one of these times in probably January out here where it was hitting 70, 75 degrees the day I left. And I was running around getting everything together. And I got out of here. I got over to the airport, got on the plane, flew all the way up there, walked out of the airport in Ottawa, going to the car, which was outdoors, and realized I had no coat whatsoever. I had just basically, work business shirts on. I mean, I had a sport coat, but nothing warm. And it was pretty cold. It's pretty cold in those places.
Yeah.
When you're not used to it, it's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the lack of preparation.
Yeah, when I remember when I went to basic training in El Paso, Texas, they wound up getting 3 inches of snow, and the Army base was the only thing that was moving because we're on the Mexican border. It's one of those things of 3 inches of snow that they closed down for 3 days because they didn't know what to do.
You know what Al does when it snows? He gets his tractor out and he goes out and has some fun, don't you, Al? You have to unmoot.
I love what they did when I was over in Scotland one time. They had these barriers. They just threw them across the road and everybody said, well, we waited for it to melt.
My
uncle lives down off the Straits of the St. Lawrence in New Brunswick on the North Shore, near Chatham, Miramichi, and he used to
have a good one.
He had an old pickup truck, an older one from the 80s. It was diesel, 4-wheel drive, posi front and rear, and he could go through 4 feet of snow without a plow on it. And he'd run right out the field, 600 yards, and he'd run thin tires so he wouldn't rise up on the snow. And it was quite the would have been quite the adventure.
And 2 bottles of Screech. But so Al, do you just get out your handy tractor and go out and plow, don't you?
Oh, I have a blower. I got a 6-foot blower.
Yeah,
that helps.
Yeah.
I got somebody that comes and does mine.
Oh, nice.
I was thinking I might do that. I'm getting tired of getting all those clothes on.
Let the young guys do it and earn some money.
So just in danger of having a number of single middle fingers flipped up at me. Our view is profoundly different here. We visit the snow.
Yes.
We are welcome anytime.
We don't live in the snow. We visit the snow.
Visit the snow. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's there's this great correlation between the difference between children and grandchildren and living and not living in the snow. So you got to think of it exactly the same, right? Not living in the snow is just like having grandchildren. You get to enjoy them and they go away. So you get to enjoy the snow and then you leave.
And you leave.
It really is true. I mean, so what's interesting is you guys have seen this. They've had 14 feet of snow where we have a cabin up in the mountains. We have 14 feet of snow up where we are, and it's a 3-hour drive. So it'll be 65, 70 degrees here, and you're 3 hours away from 14 feet of snow.
Yeah. Why would you want to go?
Oh no, you go for skiing. You go for mountain stuff for skiing. It's the best.
Oh, okay.
Some of the best skiing in the world. If you've never skied
Tahoe?
there. Yeah, Tahoe. Yeah, we've skied mainly at Squaw and Alpine. So
okay, yeah, I skied at Squaw for 3 days. I flew in on the red eye and I flew out and I skied for 3 days.
And you had to recoup for a week.
Must have been one heck of a hill if you were going down for 3 days.
Well,
so
at Whistler, you can pretty much go to the top of the hill at Blackcomb and have breakfast at the top, lunch in the middle, halfway through the day, halfway down the run, and then dinner at the bottom. My sister used to have an excursion, and they always took chains into the mountains because they were up there quite often years ago. And the guys would be out doing the inspection to make sure that, and they just wave them through and go, yeah, you get stuck, we're all screwed.
Well, this is me going for a bag of milk.
Is this at your place, Clark?
Yeah.
Right now?
No, not this year. No.
Oh, okay.
This was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, we don't have that much snow right now at all.
How much
So
you got,
Clark,
Carl?
Clark, before I've got to run, but I had to ask one question, and this is I don't want this to seem too pernicious, but when you put the doors up on your building, they had breaks at different positions in the middle of the doors,
right,
between the boards. And I was wondering how kind of the thought process was that those were attached at those break points.
You know, I'm just going by the model, but I think in real life they had like a rail across the back.
Yeah, but I guess that, I mean, my thought process was normally when you have boards that go together, they have to go together on a backing board of some kind.
Oh yeah.
So you can board, and the problem was on doors normally, like on walls, you'll have, you know, a framing stud and you'll have some of the boards break there, but they'll break regularly. And on the door, you typically only have top and bottom nailing points. And then if there's a diagonal crossbeam, maybe on the diagonal. But I was thinking if you got pieces cut at different points in the door, I'm not sure how you secure them together.
I think it's just they have, I would think, and I'm not, I'll have to think about this prototypically. Either Al or Larry might even jump in. They probably have a frame and then the boards are attached to it.
Right. But what I'm saying, but if you look at the board, if you look at the door you had, there were three breaks in the boards, and they were at different heights on the doors, which means you have to have 3 different frame rails across the door for those breaks.
No, it wasn't trimmed yet.
It doesn't matter about trimming. It matters about the ends of boards can't hang out in space. Like if you think about your house, you're putting siding on your house and you've got studs like this. You would never have 2 boards come together in the middle between studs and hang out in space. And that's what I'm saying is when they're at random points on the height of the door, I don't know how the supports would fit. And it's a good time to look and think about it now and think about what you want to do versus when you get them glued into the model is all I'm saying. Just look at it and think.
Oh, I see. Oh, you're saying in sort of the little piece.
Well, put your slide back up. Put your slide back up and I'll explain it right on the slide.
I got it now. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I just glued them on, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I know. And it's one of those things that if you don't kind of think about it, because you're gluing on a flat surface, so it doesn't matter in the model.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I totally get it. I'm trying to if I go.
But it's one of those things I do all the time is you do something because you do it different. You know, you do it just good, and then all of a sudden you think about it later. You go, wow, that's not going to line up the way I want it. So anyway,
that's a good point. That's a good point. I'll have to look at. I'll revisit it.
Maybe the doors, the wood on the doors are all
observant.
maybe the wood on the doors is tongue and groove and it holds it together that way.
You got it.
Yeah.
Hey, Clark,
My desk.
I got to run. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
My
Cause
desktop,
trouble and leave, eh?
the desktop I'm at right now is a 3 14-inch 2x14s, and they're tongue and groove.
Wow.
All right, what we're going to do, we're going to cut off the YouTube and we're going to say goodnight. But to the YouTube people, thanks for hanging in for the after show. But if you'd like to join us live, you can go into Zoom and subscribe through the Facebook page or the website. And you could join us live on the Zoom call for the after show. So we're going to carry on, but we will end the live